Valparaiso. This is WVLP 103.1. I am Hannah Trubla, the host of Conversations. And this evening, I am graced with the presence of a fellow zebra. Anybody who has a hidden illness, or especially Ehlers Danlos in particular, will understand what I mean by zebra. And anyone who doesn't is about to learn. So welcome to the show today, Amanda Szentesy.
Thank you.
Yes, she is a Northwest Indiana native, grew up in the Portage and South Haven area, is a super smart, nerdy lady. She's a chemist over there at the mill in Burns Harbor. She's an avid roller derbier. I don't know if that's the right term. Roller derbier?
Yeah. I officiate for roller derby, but yeah.
Yeah, she's involved in the South Shore Roller Derby. Shout out to that amazing team.
Yes.
So cool.
Amazing.
And she is going to bring a really fascinating perspective this evening. I have Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, EDS, hypermobile EDS, which is a joint and soft tissue disorder that affects basically every single thing in the body, not limited to joints and soft tissues, interestingly enough. And although she does not have an official diagnosis of EDS, she has kind of all of the diagnoses of the other stuff that kind of comes with it. So we are on opposite sides of that spectrum. I've got the EDS and none of the other stuff officially diagnosed, and she's got all the other stuff diagnosed and not the EDS.
Yep.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So just kind of getting things started here in a world that really loves to define us by our setbacks or our limitations. How would you define yourself despite those?
So I think, and as you know, when you have a hidden illness, an invisible illness, you always have a constant battle with your body. And so I think your limitations are almost just there, so you kind of live to exceed them just to live. And so yeah, I don't really know how to go from there other than I just push through and keep going, and you just try.
Just do your best.
Just do your best.
Just do your best with what you've got.
Yeah. But that's really it. You do your best with what you got. And I think we have the gift of having to learn our bodies and listen to our bodies. And that makes a lot of us a lot more instinctual and much more empathetic. I'm just saying.
Just a little more empathy here.
Because we know that we are often miserable all the time, but you can't tell it from the outside.
I know.
Because nobody wants to know that.
Right? Nobody wants to hear about that. When you say, how are you doing? They don't actually want to hear about the 5 dislocations and the crazy other things that we've got going on. No.
It makes people sad if you tell them actually how you feel. So, yeah, I think for me it's just always been try something new. If it works for you, keep doing it. I test my boundaries because, not to keep putting a too fine of a point on it, our boundaries are just always there because it's our body. Like it gives us a certain hill to climb.
How old were you when you were like, some kids are totally fine and they kind of don't really start developing symptoms of some of these things until much later. Some are born with it, some somewhere in between. Where do you fall in that?
So I actually have a lot of congenital things, and hi.
Move the mic closer
Okay.
here.
I have a lot of congenital things. So like in my early childhood, I started developing tummy trouble, and then when I was 5th grade, 6th grade, they diagnosed me with asthma, exercise-induced asthma, because I really couldn't breathe when I exercised. But the inhalers never worked. Never made me feel better. And they kept changing them, and I was finally given one that was causing me to pass out. Instead of helping me to breathe. And then that's when they looked at my heart and discovered, oh, hey, it's not asthma. It's a heart condition. And that was been diagnosed in 8th grade.
Okay.
And then I've always had balance problems. I had vertigo off and on my whole life. And about every once a year or so getting MRIs I know my doctor was looking for a brain tumor because of my symptoms, but it was ultimately diagnosed as Chiari malformation, which is a dangly brain, as I call it.
Yeah, the dangly brain.
Dangly brain.
You got a little extra goo there.
And that honestly was not diagnosed till I was 26, 27.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of years and a lot of MRIs to get to that. And that only came around when I developed different neurological symptoms. So yeah, it's been pretty much my whole life. I always use the story of when I was younger, one of my primary care doctors, who we stopped seeing, told my parents to stop bringing me in because I was a hypochondriac. And they obviously didn't listen. And we always joked, I'm like, hey, but there's always a diagnosis. It was never nothing.
Right.
So I saw a different doctor after that. But it was like, you kind of... So all of my stuff was just always there. So I didn't know, I don't know you're not supposed to have a headache all the time. Because I just have one.
Right.
It's just there. It's my normal.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what it is. You work to what's your normal.
Yeah, that's a good point of putting it like that. Yeah, and I always find it interesting when I talk to other people in this kind of a space with chronic illness, especially younger people and particularly women, that have shared that same experience of either being misdiagnosed or not being diagnosed at all and just kind of being tossed to the side as like someone who's just trying to get pills or someone who is a hypochondriac, like you said. And it's a difficult position to be in. Like I was raised, luckily for me, I did not receive a diagnosis until I was actually didn't get official diagnosis until I was pregnant with my son in 2017. But my mom, she always knew when we were growing up, and we kind of intentionally didn't get a diagnosis for me because that was before, like Obamacare and, pre-existing conditions you could be discriminated against for health insurance and coverage and stuff like that. And she had experienced a lot of that, having a diagnosis, but she didn't get a diagnosis until much older because, she was raised in the 60s and 70s and stuff, and they didn't really know anything about Ehlers Danlos or any of that. And so she kind of was able to guide me a little bit, like, hey, don't fold yourself up like a pretzel, even though it's funny.
No, that was encouraged because it's entertaining.
Yeah, right. She's like, if you do that, you're going to actually hurt yourself even more, and you're going to end up just like me, and you don't want to be like me. So you got to hold yourself together here. And it kind of worked like the wrong way. I was so stiff. Like stiff as a board. I was in dance for a while, and you would think that a hypermobile person would be totally cool with just like flowing. Absolutely none of that. No, I was like a big tree.
Yeah. Well, it's your muscles have to work so hard to keep your joints where they're supposed to be. It's the opposite of a lot of people. I've in the last 2 years started doing yoga regularly, and I go to asana, asana. I say it wrong the same. Sorry, Dana. Asana, and it's Iyengar yoga.
Okay.
And it's all about like holding a form, and what it does is it strengthens all of your muscles, and it holds my joints in where they're supposed to be.
Isn't it amazing?
It's been so good, and she's been so helpful to when because my joints fold like what napkins,
Yep.
They're just like, oh, we're just gonna roll. There's also a lot of what are they called? Why can't I think all of a sudden? Modifications.
Yes.
For the poses.
I'm glad you came up with it because that word was not coming to me.
No, but you know the word.
Yeah,
the word
I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, the modifications.
The modifications. But yeah, I think because our muscles are just actively trying to hold everything where it's supposed to be, we're always stiff.
Which is so funny for like a hypermobile person. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of like silly the way that we're bendy in some ways and completely, absolutely not bendy the other. The best way that I like to describe hypermobility in general is And I got this one from my mom again. She may come up a lot tonight, but she says, like, you take a rubber band, and you get it fresh out of the bag, and it's super elastic and everything's great, and you pull it, and it goes back that first time, but it doesn't quite go back 100%. And you just keep bending and keep pulling on that rubber band and snapping it back. Every time you snap it back, it doesn't quite go back to the same shape. And after a lot of pulling and snapping, that rubber band is just like a big useless thing. And that's kind of what happens to our joints over time, is every time we move something, every time we do something, it doesn't quite snap back with the same level of elasticity as it did before.
Yes.
And that brings an interesting lifestyle.
It does. I've always called my rubber band joints. And I'm like, they're a gift and a curse.
Yes.
I do activities that one built as myself maybe should not, which is skating and trail running, where everything rolls, even if you have healthy joints. And in that, I have completely rolled my ankles horribly, to the point where any other human being probably would have torn their ligaments.
Oof. Yeah.
And yet, I'm like on skates 2 hours later because it's just sore.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I didn't devastate my ankle, but now it's just always kind of sore because it didn't go back, like you're saying.
Right. It doesn't quite go back the way it never goes back.
No.
Nothing ever goes exactly back.
No.
How would you describe your experience kind of getting involved in some of these more high level, like for example, trail running, where we met? It's always really interesting to me running into people like us in those kinds of environments, because if you would go to a doctor and you say I'm hypermobile, they'd be like, don't run, don't go work out, don't overexert yourself, because you can't do those things. You're flawed, you're broken, or whatever. We don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah.
So how did you discover those types of activities, and how does that help you cope with your hypermobility and other things?
So because I've been I was limited from a very young age because of my heart. I was told, you can't, if you're going to do a sport, it has to be this. You can't do this sport. It's going to exert you too much. And I want to go back a little bit with my heart, my mitral valve prolapse, and all the additional heart condition stuff I have. I do have like POTS as well, which is not something, and you have to be very careful with that, because you don't know. But when you live in your body, as we do, when we live in our bodies, we feel our bodies, and we know when something's not right. So it's just always listening a lot. And what I found as I got older was I still don't feel well, but physical activity did make me feel better. Okay. Just a little bit. Like running, I love the community. I hate the act of running.
Same.
I hate it. I like the community. I like how I feel when I'm done. I love the accomplishment. I think one of the beautiful things about trail running, and as I've always said, like trail running, it's a vibe. It just is a vibe.
It is.
The community is amazing. All the running communities are wonderful, but the trail running community, to me especially, is very welcoming. And because in trail running, it's more of a love of being on the trails and running. There's no emphasis on pace. There's no emphasis on, it's just you did it. The goal is you did it. It doesn't matter how long it took you to do it. It's you did it, you showed up, and you did it.
Right.
And I think, at least for us who maybe have to take it more easily, it's a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful community to be in. And, I started running because my husband picked up running as a hobby, and we kind of been back and forth, like doing things, like trying new things that we each other like. Why I love him so much, but why his hobby had to be running, I don't know. It's his passion, and I'm so proud of him, and he's amazing. He's a wonderful runner. But I picked up running a little bit to kind of like do something together. Right. So the first time I started running, we started running together. We did the Race the Region, the Extra Mile does. So And we learned very quickly that it's something we did separately but together.
Right. Yeah. His pace is a little different than yours.
Yes. Yes. But that's kind of how I started. And I learned a running method, the Galloway method, because of my heart condition. My active heart rate is bananas. It is just like a bonkers bananas heart rate. And to kind of keep it not at 190 all the time, I walk.
Yeah.
I do walk-run intervals. And
Yes.
I learned that from some of my running coaches and friends at Extra Mile. And it was
cool.
just really Lindy and Molly.
Shout out to
Shout
Lee and Molly at
out.
Extra Mile.
So it's kind of like it brought a nice community, and running has this nice catharsis to it, especially when you run with a group and you find friends.
Yes.
It's just trauma bonding at its best.
It's a very traumatic activity, and we're bonding while we're doing
Yes,
it.
it's like I'm like it sounds really awful, but it's kind of like a therapy, and it's just, and I don't know. I think, and I learned and I saw that, oh hey, my resting heart rate's kind of not 100 all the time now.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
So it's
like,
helping.
It's helping, and you know, roller derby, again, another activity. I had a friend who's like, hey, this thing is happening. Do you want to go to this bar and learn about it? I was like, sure. So I was one of the founding members of Region Rat Rollers way back in the day.
Oh my gosh, no way.
And I started to train as a skater. I can take hits, but I can't give them. I am for poop when it comes to that. So we also needed officials and officiating, so I kind of flipped over to that. Because, you know, you learn your strengths.
Yeah.
And in officiating, you get to skate, but you also get to yell at people and blow a whistle.
We love that.
So we love that.
I would love to hear it. There have been quite a few people who have asked me if I would like to get involved in roller derby. They're like, you are such you are like that personality type that would fit really well. And I'm like, you guys, have you ever seen those cartoons where the skeleton like just blows into a million pieces, like his bones just go everywhere? Like that would be me if one person hits me in roller derby. That is not for me. And so I love to hear that there is a place for, you know, easily dislocatable folks in the roller derby world.
There is that's another one of those just really inclusive, wonderful communities. It's where the misfits fit.
Love it.
It just is. It's the land of the misfit toys, and in the best way possible. And there is something for everybody, which I hate to be like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug South Shore Roller
Please,
Derby.
shameless plug right now. Let's do it.
Tomorrow at NEO, Adult Education Center in Portage, is our first call out for the season, 7 to 9. So we're looking for people to officiate.
Okay.
Which is what I do. But we're also looking for skaters. But in officiating, say you can't be hit. We need non-skating officials too.
Right.
And you are just as much a part of the team. You literally can't do the game without us.
It's very important.
Very important.
The building block of the entire team
It
are the
truly
officiators.
is. Yeah, we keep it safe. We enforce the rules, make sure it's fair, and do all of the things to make sure the game runs. And you can do that with any physical limitation that you have or don't have, whatever you're the most comfortable with doing. So yeah, Derby is another really wonderful community. That's just great.
It's a good place to get some healthy aggression out in a safe way.
It is.
Semi-safe. Mostly safe.
Mostly safe. We train it to be as safe as possible. Injury happens.
It's a sport. It's inevitable.
A sport. It's a full contact sport. That's always it's a full contact sport. It's footballs without pads.
Love it. It's intense.
With wheels on your feet.
Yes.
And the ball is a human being.
And so if anybody that is maybe catching this on a replay or on the podcast, so like tomorrow is not actually tomorrow anymore, where can they go to get some more information if they are wanting to get involved?
SouthShoreRollerDerby.com. And our Facebook page, which is South Shore Roller Derby. And we have an additional call out the 4th. Wait, is that tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's
the 4th and a week from the 4th.
So sometime in February. Just go check it out. Like, South Shore Roller Derby.
I can't. I might be science, but don't make me numbers.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we are tuned in on WVLP 103.1. I'm here with my friend Amanda. We're talking all things invisible illness, particularly EDS and heart defects, which is super invisible.
It's super invisible.
Do you know any like stats offhand in terms of how rare your...
So mitral valve prolapse is relatively common.
Okay.
I don't know all of the full stats. It is genetic, and it can be genetic. Nearly everybody in my family has it.
Great.
It's fun. Good times. Or we have some form of a heart condition in my family. I don't know the full statistics. I do know for hypermobile EDS, it's very common.
Yeah.
It's almost one of the check marks that puts you in the box of you got it.
Right. Yeah, that's why I find it very interesting when we were first talking and you had said you've got Chiari and you've got the heart mouth, you've got all these different things. And I was like, hey, that's interesting. Do you have EDS? You're like, I think maybe. I don't know. No one's actually given me the official diagnosis, but...
Yeah. And I have a lot of people who ask me if I have EDS. I'm like, probably.
Maybe.
Odds are, yes.
It's kind of interesting, too, with EDS in particular. They say that it's a very rare disorder, but I am finding it to be less rare. I wouldn't consider it a common thing, but definitely less rare than what they were originally thinking.
Yeah. And I think some of that is just changing with the diagnosis, or people realizing, oh, that is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like, joints shouldn't bend that way.
Right.
You know, like, because it's our normal.
Right, we never realize.
You don't think to go to the doctor because you can touch your thumb to your wrist, because that's just something I can do.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, and then you do it, or you like stretch in a weird way, or you sit on the couch in a certain way, and a new friend will just kind of look at you like, are you okay? You're like, what do you mean? They're like, I cannot, how are you sitting that way?
Yeah.
What do you mean? This is comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, my comfortable is very uncomfortable looking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'd love to kind of turn this, the direction kind of a little bit more into the side of, you don't look sick. No. You actually look quite great. You look wonderful. You look just downright sprightly. You can't possibly be ill.
No, not at all. Never.
If I had $1 for every time someone would have told me that.
I had a running joke that, I am a hot mess. I just come in a nice package. Like the package.
A hot mess in a nice package.
I'm like, it's a hot mess express inside. It is just hot garbage. It's like nothing works. But on the outside, I appear healthy because I am healthy for me. I always want to preface, I'm healthy for me.
For you.
For
exactly.
Me. And, again, when I list everything, if I listed every pain I am having right now, it would overwhelm most people. So I'm not going to, because it's overwhelming to think, oh, people lived like that. But I will talk to people about it, because like you don't know.
Right, you never know until you know.
Until you know. We're trained to not show our discomfort because it makes other people uncomfortable.
Especially for women.
And and I don't even, it's not like something that was encouraged. It's just something societally that happened. My mom and dad were never like, you're making people uncomfortable.
Right.
They never instilled that in me. It was just, you're just taught. One of the best things that kind of happened for me was getting the job out at the mill, even though I swore I would never work at the mill.
You're a region rat if.
But it kind of helped me grow and become a more forceful person than I normally would have been. Helped me outgrow some of those things that were instilled in me.
Yeah.
Which is the not making people uncomfortable.
Right.
All my therapy, I'm not responsible for other people's response to me.
Ooh, mic drop.
Mic drop.
Yes.
I am not responsible for how they respond.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to take when you're a people pleaser.
You're talking to the choir right now.
I know I am. That's why I feel I can talk about it.
I know. People pleaser here. Recovering people pleaser.
Oh, it's hard. It's a hard recovery.
It really, truly is.
It
It's
really
never,
is.
you're never fully recovered from it.
No, you don't.
No.
But I think that's, we just grow up hiding our discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the minute you let your mask drop and let people see how you're really feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like a hard one. So
I think, that leads to kind of a good question about that is just in terms of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
Specifically our life partners, our husbands. When you first start dating somebody, you want to kind of just put on your best face and, do all of that stuff. And then, you kind of get to that level where you're more comfortable and you're kind of more like, this is actually who I really am and these sorts of things. And, how did you navigate, your different health issues and just kind of how you actually feel, and how was your husband's reaction when he kind of learned and was able to understand more fully what it's actually like to be you and what you're actually going through?
So, the way our relationship started was as friends. So we're friends for years. So it started off a lot differently than dating.
Yeah.
So it was like we were immediately just friends.
Right.
And so you already automatically learn more about people differently, much more quickly in a friendship usually.
Right.
But I think as life has gone on, and as life has changed for him, he's a wonderfully healthy person who hasn't had to tackle a lot of things placidly. It's wonderful. But as like age stuff has happened and the poor guy is experiencing some of the stuff I've experienced my whole life, it's like a whoa.
Right. Oh.
So I think it was, because I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I do think it was like hard to grasp a little bit that I really, truly, I'm not lying, I am always tired.
Right.
It's not a fib. I physically hurt all of the time, and it is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And when you also add on to folks with hypermobile EDS having a higher rate of having anxiety and depression disorders and poor sleep because of those and because you're always in pain, it's just, it makes life a little bit more tough.
Right.
But, we've been in a relationship now almost 20 years as a couple.
Okay.
And friendship-wise, we celebrated last year that we've been in each other's lives longer than we haven't.
Woohoo! That's a big milestone.
It's a big milestone. So I think like as things have grown and changed, there's just a different understanding. And you get to see, but I'm always tried as I've gotten older. I was never as authentic to who I was until I got older. Now I'm just the weirdo, and I'm okay with being the weirdo. But I used to be afraid to be the weirdo or be the weird, and weird in the best way.
Right.
Because a good weird. I don't think weird's a bad word.
No.
But I just did not want. But with my friends, I'm always who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he just got a full face of that already.
Right.
So I think that's like, but when you're a healthy person, it is hard to still grasp, even when you want to, even when you want to understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really hard to know.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always use the, which I don't know if your shoulders and upper back and are just rocks all the time.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Pretty much. And I always use when we were first kind of dating, when we kind of made the leap from friends to dating, then I would just ask for a shoulder rub because it hurts so bad. And I'm like, can you he thought I was just trying to get like a back rub.
Right.
And I was
like, no, really?
No, I'm like, no, really. And he finally like rubbed my shoulders and he was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. You're like, what is this?
Yeah. He's like, that's like a solid rock. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm asking you to.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah. So I think it's like, but it also comes with having a partner who is willing to understand.
100%. I have had relationships in the past that were not empathetic, and it was, kind of contributed almost to that people pleasing thing. Like, you get into your own head sometimes especially when you've got society telling you don't look sick, and you've got a partner telling you that you're just being lazy and you're just, making excuses to not have to do something or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you start to kind of question it. You're like, am I just like a lazy, like, am I making this, am I lying? Am I making this up? Like, what? And you got doctors that are just like, just take some ibuprofen, you'll be fine. And you're like, I've taken 1,200 milligrams of ibuprofen and I still feel everything. Yeah. And, when I met Joe, my partner in life, he was like, he's the most empathetic and understanding person basically on earth. Like, he's like an honorary woman. Like, he's just so... He's intuitive and he gets it, and he understands even when he himself is not experiencing those things. Yeah. He's a pretty healthy guy. We bond on back pain. But I will never forget, like, the first time that we did any sort of massage, he was like, what are all these, like, lumps? You are like, something is terribly gone wrong. And I'm like, no, this is literally me.
Weird jokes. Like, he would rub my shoulder. When he realized that it truly is because I'm in, like, physical pain, and then but they like pop and crunch. Oh yeah. And he would be like, I don't want to make a sound that'll upset people's tummies, but he would make a gag sound and be like, that one had hair and teeth. Oh, and I was just like, yes. We joke that my knots like are like sentient beings at this point.
I could see, mine has a social security number.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I get that.
So it's definitely but it's been nice to grow together, though, too. Yeah, and learn. And he was there at the appointment when I got my Chiari diagnosis.
Okay, yeah. So he knows.
Yeah, and we left there with him going, come on, Dangles. And
Dangles. You're like, yep, you're the one.
You're the one.
You're the one.
It stresses him out. He's a bit of a worrywart, such as I am. So the poor guy is like almost always on some level of stressed out because of my health. Yeah. But I try to, not stress him out too badly.
He knows what he signed up for.
He knows what he signed up for.
He knows.
Yes. So but it's just growing together. Right. I think like with you, I'm very lucky to have a partner who's still in my life, and we've been able to grow together.
Because that's not always the case.
It's not always the case. So.
Well, that's fantastic, and I love that for you. And I wish that for everyone.
Yes, it's good to have an understanding partner.
Yes, and even if even if you're not with permanently partnered with like a lover, like just having that close-knit group of, whether it be one individual or a group of individuals that are there for you in a real way. Yeah. That, like, go out of your way to seek that out. Yeah. Because that makes everything just better.
It does.
It really does. And especially those that are different from you. You know, I would say some of my best and greatest friendships are people who, like, we don't really have that much in common, but we just share something. Some soul thing. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And they just get it, Yeah. And I also wanted to say that, like, I heard you when you said, I'm not lying when I say I'm always tired. It's funny. Like, I heard that in you, and you're like, you don't have to tell me you're not lying. I know that. But I realize I kind of do that all the time. Like, no, I'm actually really tired. I'm not lying.
Oh, yeah. I'm not lying. I promise. I'm, like, really tired.
The fatigue is unreal and sometimes very overwhelming. And as a person who's very active and has really committed to living a full life, regardless of what's going on, I kind of woke up one day and just decided I didn't want to be a victim anymore. And kind of moved into, like, I'm going to have control of this ship. And, maybe the ship isn't the nicest high-end ship. It might
be a little leaky.
Yeah, we got some leaks. Boards. Yeah, we get the rudders are a little old, a little out of whack, but it's my freaking ship, and I am going to steer it, and I'm going to take it out in the ocean, and I'm going to live. Yeah. And I'm going to do it until I'm not alive anymore. But that comes with, there's been such a learning curve from understanding when it's okay to push the limits and when it's okay to honor, the limits where they're at. When you speak on that in terms of, your experience with how do you differentiate between I need to push through this or I can't push through this to, okay, I need to listen to my body and recognize that this is the stopping place.
You all can't see it. I'm grimace smiling because I don't listen to my body. I don't often. I often try to push through. Mm-hmm. And it's not always the best choice. Point in fact, I got a stress fracture in my foot in the last half marathon I ran.
Oof.
But that partially because I did not train properly for it. Mm-hmm. But I had like less than a 5K left and got a pain, but I kept going. Mm-hmm. If I curled my toes, it didn't hurt so bad.
Ouch.
So I don't always listen, but then it's always a hard lesson afterwards. So I knew I should have stopped and or just walked the rest of it, but I didn't. So I will say I'm not. What do I tell my employees? Do as I say, not as I do. No, it's I do try to listen. My POTS flared up recently again, and I forgot how bad it used to be. Mm-hmm. And that's the one you gotta, there are some that I listen to more loudly than others, and POTS is one of them, because it's very dangerous.
Just describe quickly what the POTS is for anyone who doesn't know.
Post orthostatic tachycardic something. I can't remember.
It's POTS.
POTS. So it's essentially rapid heartbeat out of nowhere, makes you pass out. Not to be like, but yeah, I was a silly goose when I was in my already had heart issues. I've always had low blood pressure. I've always had a fast heart rate. Did not take proper care of myself when I was in my mid-20s and just decided to say, how hard can I abuse this body?
Let's see.
And develop POTS, and then it didn't go away.
Whoops.
But that's one where it's just a rapid heart rate, and then you pass out very easily, and you'll drop because it's so fast. It's like you're running a marathon while standing still.
Yeah.
And when you have low blood pressure already, it drops very fast, and you can go. So that's one of them you have to listen, or you can very, very much injure yourself.
Yeah.
I loved my cardiologist I used to have. He retired, and I used to come home and be like, oh, that Dr. Doom. But he would just get things to me very straightforward, which I appreciated, and I think he delivered it to me that way because I could handle it straightforward. But the number of times I had to hear him talk about him being worried I'd pass out, crack my head open, and bleed to death. I was like, okay, we could calm down on that.
He's like, no, but we really need to.
But no, we really need to worry about this happening to you. And I was like, okay.
Preventative measures.
Preventative measures.
Yeah.
So that's the one I do listen to more. But I don't always know I pushed too far until after the fact. So I feel okay when I'm doing it.
Right.
I think that's what I have the hardest time with is I feel great. I feel great whenever I'm, really, working myself at yoga, or I'm really, really, skating my heart out. But then a day or two later, my whole body just feels like a bat has, gotten me. Like, I just went through a wash cycle. Like, it just is so tender everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize I pushed myself. So I think that's where, for me, I have a hard time. I don't realize I've pushed myself. It's always like okay.
Whoop, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
But then I also learned if I kind of keep at that same level, that the line keeps moving.
Yeah.
Of where the limit is.
Right.
And so, like, if I'm consistent, the line is kind of always slightly moving, and I don't have as many limits. I don't, surpass too many things if I'm consistent.
Right.
Hence the stress fracture, because
right.
I was not consistent, and I still was like, I haven't ran in 3 months. Let's run a half marathon.
And there you go.
And there we go. So I'm not always the best to listen to because I make silly choices.
It's hard though, because you want to do more and you want to get done and you want to prove to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah.
And I know I definitely struggle with, I'm like, did I push myself too hard, or am I just having a flare up? Or is it both? Or is it neither? Did I injure myself?
Yeah.
What is happening right now?
Yeah. I, like point in fact, my back is kind of fudged right now.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up and it was just fudged.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, what did I do? This feels like I got yanked or I fell. It's what it feels like, but I didn't do any of those things.
Yeah, you probably just rolled over in bed.
So yeah, so it's like it's like you're saying, it's like, what is this? Did I do something silly and I didn't realize it? I'd prefer to choose to do it, so at least I could just be like, oh, you're a silly goose. You know, you did that to yourself. You deserved it because you did it to yourself.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
Or not learned.
Or yeah, I never truly learned my lessons. I do think though that well, I'm 45, so it's like enough of pushing my limits that I kind of know where they're at now. I kind of got over some of the bigger, just don't do those when I was younger before it would cause too much impact. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the other, but you know, I don't know how much physical therapy you've had to go through for your like joint issues and that, but my hips, I keep having to go back for physical therapy. And that's one of them where it's like some of that comes from doing silly things in my youth. But some of it is just, they just don't want to work anymore. But you have to like, I already lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Okay.
And you know, you're 45, you're still young, you know, in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
And your body has, you know, our bodies age and kind of advance a little quicker than maybe an average person or portray themselves to be that way.
Yes.
And there is an inevitable truth of things that happen to your body and the way that they handle things as you age. And having to kind of come to terms with that, in addition to managing what you've already been managing your whole life, it kind of puts an interesting perspective, I'm sure.
It does. It does. And now it's for maintenance purposes, staying active so that things don't decline more.
Yeah.
Maintaining muscle tone is going to be important as I age. As much as I don't want to do those things, maintaining is going to be very important for my joint health.
Yes.
Because my joints just can't do the things that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
They don't have the mechanisms to do what they're supposed to.
And that's okay.
And
it
that's
doesn't make you
okay.
any lesser than.
No, it doesn't.
Shout out to anybody who feels lesser than. You're not.
No, you're not.
You got your thing and you do the thing with whatever you got, and that's okay.
It's your normal.
Exactly. You're normal. And sometimes your normal today and your normal tomorrow and your normal yesterday are three totally different normals.
Absolutely.
And that's also okay. Albeit very confusing.
Yeah.
But it is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. So
How would you, any advice to somebody who, whether it be something physical or something mental, just anything that feels debilitating, you know, when feels like they are not able to live a full life, or they feel trapped in their body or trapped in their mind, and, you know, it's really keeping them from being able to do what they want. What advice would you have for them in terms of breaking through and getting past that?
So I mentioned therapy again, but it's small goals. If you can set a small accomplishment, and that accomplishment could be brushing your teeth today. But if you've accomplished that, you did it, and then maybe tomorrow it's brushing your teeth and washing your hair. And everybody's accomplishment is going to be big to them. It doesn't matter how small it feels to other people. So I struggle a lot with depression and doing things. And my husband and I are the opposite people. Like, I need clutter to be content, and he needs nothing.
I feel like I'm talking to like a mirror image of my life.
So I'm like, I need my piles, and that makes my brain happy. It scratches something. But it has to be my piles, because his piles anger me.
Yes.
But my piles are good.
They're organized piles.
I know what's in that pile.
Oh, yeah. You hear that, Joe?
Yeah, you hear that, Joe? But yeah, I think it's really just setting like a small goal, a small accomplishment, or a accomplishment, something that is, don't do something unattainable in wherever you're at, because that sets you up to failure. Yeah. It just does. But I think a small, so one of my, I don't know if I should say it on here because people are listening. One of my smaller accomplishments is working to get my resume done.
Okay, amazing.
Updated.
Yeah.
Life is changing, and I just think I haven't touched it in almost 20 years, because this year will be 19 years in the mill.
Nice.
But over the last 5 years, I've had several promotions, and it's like, oh, maybe I should reinvestigate this thing.
Yeah.
But it's been almost insurmountable to me to do it. So that's one of the goals I have set to myself.
That's going to be awesome for you, too, is even if you don't end up using it, you don't go and apply at a job somewhere else, just to really look at that and see the accomplishments that you've done really will be great for you. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah. So I think that's for me, that's one of my... getting back to yoga after my foot fracture, that was another one. I kind of, I was really struggling to get back to the things. The SADs do that to you.
They sure do, especially this time of year.
It makes it real hard to do those things you like.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess that's it. Just setting a small goal for yourself. And then once you get that, then it kind of empowers you.
Yes.
To set something a little bit more of a stretch. And then before you know it, you're going to be like you and running the equivalent of Mount Everest.
Yeah, I am doing that.
Are you still training for it?
Yes. Okay. So, perfect segue. Thanks for teeing that up for me. We can just hit that right now. So
professional. No.
I have been training for this my whole life, I'd like to say. So we're in October I am doing what's called 29029. It's an Everesting event. I'm not going to climb the actual Mount Everest because no thank you. But in Vermont, Stratton Mountain, if you climb it 17 times, that will be the equivalent elevation gain of Mount Everest. And I have... quick little backstory to anybody who doesn't know. I started a weight loss and just wellness journey in 2020 and 2021 and have since lost 100 pounds and have really found a lot of strength in that, and has really helped me. It hasn't cured my depression or anything like that, but it's definitely helped and has been, I can't even describe how it's helped me physically, with my managing my EDS symptoms, because I refuse to go and just get on a bunch of pain pills and I don't want to be that person. I want to be very present, and I want to be available to my kids, and I want to live a full life, and I don't want to be limited to what I can do because of what I have. And so fitness and nutrition has been an amazing tool. I have not had a full dislocation in almost 2 years.
Yay.
Plenty of subluxation, that happens all the time, but I have not fully dislocated. It used to be when I would go to the gym, I could not do anything overhead, because the second that I would lift those weights over my head, I would dislocate my shoulder and I would be out of the gym for weeks. Yeah. And that doesn't happen anymore. And so that is just an amazing thing. But getting more into running. I've done the trail running, and that was fantastic. I did a half marathon on pavement. That was not fantastic. I felt super accomplished when I was done, but I was down for the count and realized that the trail running was great because of the softness of the ground. I think that helped with impact, and it helped reduce the amount of injury that I sustained in doing that.
Yeah, road running is rough on the joints.
Yeah, not interested in doing that anymore. The trail running, yes. But I followed 29029. I read Colin O'Brady. He's one of the founding investors of this event. I read his book, and he talks about it, and I was like, what is this crazy thing? That sounds insane. I would never do that, but I totally want to follow these people because I secretly do want to do that, and felt, for over 2 years kind of listening and following and just wishing that I could do something like that, and having this dialogue of, oh yeah, I could never do that. Your body is not made for that sort of thing. And that's kind of when I realized that I needed to do that event to not just prove to myself that I was capable and deserving of such an accolade, but also to show anybody that you can do anything if you set your mind to it and you do it right. And so kind of made that commitment and signed up for it. So the training officially starts in June. Okay. There's like I think it's 20 weeks or something, and it's kind of part of the, when you sign up for it, you kind of get access to it. But I've been working on just building more consistency and working on building more just resiliency and endurance, because endurance has always been really tough for me to maintain anything and to kind of get through like when you have flare-ups and stuff. So learning how to do that. But anyway, long story short, since I have EDS and since part of the reason I wanted to do this was to help with the awareness of you can do anything regardless of, of your circumstances, I partnered with the Ehlers Danlos Society, and we are doing a fundraiser to raise $29,029 for EDS research, specifically earmarked for research. So there'll be like a link in the whatevers when you're listening to this as a podcast to follow along with that. But really want to use this opportunity to kind of raise up EDS and show that, well, for one, it's not as rare as they say it is. And for two, it is drastically underfunded and drastically under-researched and misunderstood. And it's an opportunity to really kind of help reshape that and to raise awareness of it and to help the next generation of EDSers, like my kids and their kids, to have the resources available to not struggle so much and to have a lot more of that preventative and not struggle so much in the medical field.
I think that's like more people being more aware. So I see Dr. Emily Larson at Rush Physical Therapy, and she was so educated in hypermobility.
That's incredible.
And it was like, oh, you know the things. We know I have to do it this way. And, another part of the EDS that doesn't get talked about a lot either is like it impacts all your organs too.
Every single one.
Every single one, because everything that holds your organs where they're supposed to be is connective tissue. And when that's loosey-goosey, everything drops. And pressure is where it shouldn't be. And so we need different therapies throughout our life to just maintain our even organs where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think it's really good and that's why I was like super excited. I've told you this, and I'm kind of happy I was able to be there, but Emily was able to use me as a test subject for a PT student intern who's in her practice at that practice. So she could see what hypermobile joints feel like. Because it is terrifying when you know they're not supposed to bend that way.
Yeah, and it's terrifying for us when you're not certain whether or not the person working on us knows and understands what that's about. Yes. So good on you for being willing to be a guinea pig and a test subject.
It got use the things that are going on for somebody else to learn from.
Exactly.
I'm okay with it.
Right.
If you're uncomfortable with that, absolutely. I always joke, I am okay talking about my mental health struggles. I'm comfortable talking about my health struggles. Not everybody is, and that's okay. But because I am, maybe my words, somebody will hear them and they'll be like, oh yeah, I can go look at that, or oh hey, yeah.
Well, that's my hope for tonight's episode, is to really lift that up and really, who knows, somebody hearing this might be like, oh, my heart does that. Yeah. Or, oh, my doctor said this. And then, you can go and get a second opinion and you can advocate for yourself. And with that, I want to ask, what are some of the tools that you have kind of collected in your toolbox over the years in terms of navigating the medical field with all of these strange and kind of different things? And what advice would you give to somebody who's stepping into that world, how to advocate for themselves when they know that something is not right?
So I think the hardest part is to get people to hear you. and to listen to what you're saying. And you kind of almost have to put your foot down. And that is, as somebody who's not comfortable with conflict and confrontation, it is very hard. I might be crying while I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it. But what I've found is a really great tool for me, and I know it's often, is always having your questions ready in written so you don't forget.
Yeah.
If the doctor consents, recording the responses so you have the responses. I don't do that, but I do think that's a good tool. But I do think writing down what questions you have. If there's that's not, you're too young for that. I hate that one because I've gotten that so many times. I go, that's exactly why I'm here. Well, I'm like, I know I'm too young for this.
Right, that's why I'm curious why it's happening.
That's why I'm curious. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
And, in that case, because on top of everything else, I also have, gynecological issues, which is, again, connective tissue related.
Yep. Same, dealing with that right now.
And so, finding a doctor that was just going to listen. And it took like 3. Yep. I had to go to 3 different doctors. And no, this is not chasing a diagnosis. I'm like, I just need somebody to listen, to hear me.
Yes.
And, that doctor heard me. They tested my hormones. They did all of these things that instead of saying you're too young for that, they're like, you're too young for that. We need to find out why. So it's exhausting because sometimes it's seeing more than one doctor.
Yes.
But if you have a doctor that you trust inherently, do trust, I always go with their advice first. And then, my nurse practitioner I now see, she's amazing. And she was the reason I see Emily now. Because she, sent me to Emily. And then look at that. Emily is, versed in hypermobility. So sometimes it's just listening to the people that are there. But yeah, it's
a lot, and it's never going to be easy, but it's always going to be worth it. And I feel like, if you know something's not right, because don't get like gaslit into thinking that you're full of it. Like, believe yourself and trust that gut, because if something is wrong, you're going to know. And if you just take a moment and tune into your body and you listen, it'll tell you. And you got to listen to that, and don't ever stop until you find the person that listens to you as well. And yes, do not stop. Don't give up, and don't let anybody tell you that you're a hypochondriac.
No, because it truly
chances are you're not.
Chances are you're not. If it's wrong.
Exactly.
You know if you don't feel right. And you will find the doctor who will be like, wow, you're really in tune with your body. When they run the test and find something is going on, you're like, yes, I know. That's why I'm here.
Exactly. And when they run the test and it comes back normal, which is what happens to me a lot, keep digging. Find the next thing. Keep researching. Keep advocating. Connect with other people who have similar situations. If you are in the EDS boat, follow the Ehlers Danlos Society. Connect with people like myself. Connect with Amanda. Like, we are here for you. And we're with you all the way, forever and ever. And whether you are fully mobile or whether you're wheelchair bound or whether you're somewhere in between, there is space for you, and you are welcome, and you are deserving to have a life that you want to live. And that's all I got on that.
I'm like, I don't know if I have much more.
Right.
Just, I don't know. You do the best you can do.
Do the best you can do in the moment that you're in.
Yeah.
And tomorrow is a new day, and the day after that's a new day, and yesterday's yesterday. So
I feel like it's like your best is the best.
Exactly.
Like, it's, like, and if in that moment it's this, this little bit, and then the next moment it's a ginormous bit, it's still all the good bits.
Exactly. And I'll end this with one of my favorite quotes. It's this, they say, common medical is that when you hear hoofbeats, think of horses, which basically means look at the most common thing and assume that first. But it goes a little further that says, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, but don't ever forget that zebras exist. And that is what we are, we're a little different. And just because you don't think of it right away doesn't mean that we're not there. So, Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I really
thank
enjoyed it.
you.
The hour went fast.
Yeah, it did.
I hope that everyone listening enjoys this. And tune in every single Monday. There will be a different conversations. I'm the first Monday of the month. And this is Hannah Trueblood on WVLP 103.1. You are Amanda. And we think, therefore we are. We think.
Yeah, we think.
Have a great, great evening, everyone.